What could be the reasons of breakup nowadays?
Number one is gaslighting. The person is just manipulating you into questioning your own thoughts and emotions and your own reality. Maybe you know how to get through them, maybe you don't. Maybe you have a support system for it, maybe you don't.
Is a sign of depression or it is completely different than depression?
It means that you are going to be distressed.
What do you think, what role does childhood trauma play in depression?
Nobody is free from childhood trauma.
And how would I know that I might be having that?
Very often people confuse stress and anxiety because we are going to face stressful situations inevitably in our lives.
Can therapy help in that?
Therapy is that space which helps you identify what you really want, what your core values, beliefs are.
Do you think somebody who had a normal childhood can have a bad relationship? Hi, this is Dr. Mehak Sharma. I'm a licensed occupational therapist, psychotherapist, and founder of FYP Life. And today we are in conversation with Afifa Rafat. Afifa, please हमें अपने बारे में कुछ बताइए.
Hi, Dr. Mehak. Thank you for having me here. So, I'm Afifa Rafat, as you've already introduced. I'm a psychologist, an EAP counselor, and an expressive arts facilitator. I'm from Bangalore. I've done my MSc in clinical psychology, and I've been practicing for the last 4+ years now.
What does therapy mean to you? What do you think how does therapy works?
Well, this is a beautiful question that I propose to all my clients in the very first session. So I'll give you my description of it. For me, therapy is imagine as if we're going on a journey or a trip together. You're driving the car, you're behind the wheel, and you're in complete control. And I am just there along, giving you guidance along the way. That is what therapy means to me.
What is the difference between anxiety and social anxiety? Are they same or they're different?
So, anxiety, the word itself is a very broad spectrum. You could feel anxious about anything that, oh my God, I'm late for my job. From that to the fact that, what if I get a heart attack right now? It could be about anything and everything. But social anxiety is very specific to social situations where you have to meet people, where you have to socialize, where you might need to step out of your house. So, they are quite different. And social anxiety, you can say, comes under the anxiety umbrella.
Hmm. And how would I know that I might be having that? I might have social anxiety.
So everyone does feel a little socially conscious or hesitant from time to time, which is completely natural. We are only human at the end of the day. But when you notice that, you're so conscious, you're so hesitant, you're so worried about these social situations where it might be actually hampering your social life, might be hampering your occupational life because काम पे जाके लोगों से बात करना ही पड़ेगा आपको. So that is when you know कि I'm avoiding work, I'm avoiding these social situations, I'm just shutting myself in the house all day and night and not stepping out on weekends also where people, log weekend का इंतजार करते हैं and you're just sitting there at home like, oh my God, thank God I'm not going home. I'm not going out of my house. So that is when you know, okay, there is something not okay and maybe it's social anxiety.
So, what are the signs that I'm just not being anxious about an event in my life? I'm really having some issues that would need therapeutic work.
You would have to elaborate a little bit on that.
Like, do you think that people ignore few signs that they are more than anxious? They're actually having an anxiety episode or something that is they cannot deal with themselves.
Okay. So, very often people confuse stress and anxiety because we are going to face stressful situations inevitably in our lives from time to time. And that's, a part of our life. But when you notice that there is stress and anxiety and there is more happening where you are not able to handle it alone, where, you're breaking down, where nothing seems to be working in your favor, and you are maybe having a nervous breakdown in your office, maybe you are just suddenly start crying out of nowhere at a family gathering, that is probably a good sign that you are facing a lot that does need to be addressed and you are not okay right now. And this is a very important telltale sign.
What is the reason somebody will get a sudden panic attack?
Okay. So the funny thing is, they are sudden, and panic attacks by origin don't have a specific cause or trigger. So it could happen at any time, anywhere, and that is insanely scary. बहुत डर लगता है just to even think about it. But that is the nature of these, issues. So anxiety itself doesn't have a certain cause. It's a uncharacterized apprehension about future events. तो फ्यूचर में क्या होगा नहीं होगा, कुछ हो ना हो, आई एम सिटिंग हियर एंग्शियस थिंकिंग अबाउट इट.
So how will someone who's watching this can handle or kind of help themselves when they're having this sudden panic attack? What could be few tips that they can take away?
Okay. So a lot of the clients that I do have with me experiencing panic attack concerns, this is the number one question that they ask. कि मैं क्या करूँ? मैं क्या करूँ? What if I have a panic attack at the airport or on the flight, or what do I do? Because of course their flight will be in in the sky, 1,000 kilometers up in the sky. They can't just call me up and be like मैं क्या करूँ अब? That's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So these are situations where, as a therapist, I do need to prepare them for, because some things you are going to be facing by yourself, and I will not be there to handhold you, unfortunately. And you may not have anyone else beside you. That could be a possibility too. So number one thing to do is tell yourself that this is just a panic attack, it will pass. Because when you think, okay, panic attack ho raha hai, what if heart attack bhi ho jaye, that is when things are going to go out of hand for sure. So just acknowledge the fact that this is just a panic attack, it will pass. I have gone through this before and I will get through it now. It will be okay. That self reassurance is a script that you're using to ground yourself, to help yourself feel stable and, okay in the moment. Because किसी ना किसी तो सुनना चाहिए कि you're going to be okay. And if there's nobody around, like imagine you reach out to the passenger or next to you in the bus, or like, some random person in the mall. उनको थोड़ी ना पता कि panic attack क्या है. That's a possibility too. They might be like, just breathe, just breathe. So it is something you have to tell yourself that this is step one. Step two would be, please take your SOS medication.
Okay, what are the signs that people can miss and they don't know that they are suffering or they're having a issue which needs therapy?
Okay. So it could be literally anything and everything that way.
Mhm.
I mean, according to our existential school of thought, one of the purposes of human life is to suffer, which is very depressing, very sad to even think about. But if we are in a constant state of anxiety, pain, depression, or some kind of suffering, if you want to call it that, then it means that you are going to be distressed at some point. वो होने ही वाला है. As you get older, you will have more challenges in life. You will have more, responsibilities. And maybe you know how to get through them. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have a support system for it. Maybe you don't. But at the end of the day, you don't have to get through these things alone or navigate them alone. You do have the resources and help to make this easier for yourself. And, reaching out to people when you realize that this is something that has always bothered me. This is something that I really don't like about myself. This is something that people always complain about to me. That these are signs that, okay, it may be, an opportunity to take up therapy. It may be an opportunity even just do some self-reflection first. But there are ways to navigate this. If you do feel bothered by such things, then yeah.
Now, I would like to talk a little bit about depression. Do you think that laziness or a lack of will or not having that willpower is a sign of depression, or it is completely different than depression?
Oh, those are completely different. So to the layman, it seems like, oh, ये तो बस पड़ी रहती है पूरा दिन कुछ नहीं करती, and she's just lazy. She's just making excuses. But that isn't what it always is, right? We're very comfortable in our own houses. Nobody wants to get up early in the morning to go to work. Yeah, we would like to just sleep in or watch TV. But at the end of the day, when you are experiencing something like depression, it's not a joke. It may seem like, oh, they're just lying around like some sick patient, but they're not sick. Everything is fine. Then why are they like this? But three, most important signs of depression is low interest in things that you actually enjoyed once upon a time, like your hobbies, meeting people, going out, your own job if you're very passionate about it, having absolutely zero interest in those things, having low energy, where you're just constantly tired, fatigued, not, having that enthusiasm for anything, and it feels like you're dragging yourself all the time.
Yeah.
And the last one is you are in a low mood. You are just perpetually sad, where it's like even if the day outside is sunshine and rainbows, you're just like, whatever. So these are three important signs to consider that you're not just sad or lazy. you may be experiencing depression.
How does depression is very different from burnout? Because nowadays we're working so much
Mm-hmm.
that the symptoms you're saying somebody can have it even in a burnout. So how do we differentiate with depression, or burnout can lead to depression in some way?
Yes, of course. So, depression is a very natural part of experiencing burnout. Burnout means that you are doing something so much, giving all your time, attention, energy to it, itna day and night, ki you are running on empty basically.
Hmm.
So, that of course is going to make you irritated as a part of it, or make you feel very low. Because we commonly, most people who experience burnout are, of course, are corporate workers,
Hmm.
because दिन रात अपने job इतना dedicatedly कर रहे हैं, so they are likely to experience burnout. Other people would be caregivers, people who are taking care of somebody who requires immense medical help, who requires a lot of physical help. So people who are in this position of a caregiver do experience burnout because it's a full-time job. ये आज बोल नहीं सकते कि ओ आज तुम अपना खाना खुद ही बना लो even if you're disabled. That's not possible, right? So you are in a very difficult place where you still need to work for making a living. You still need to help the family that you're a part of, and you still want to do these things. But it feels like I don't have energy. I don't have motivation. It's like if your phone battery is on empty or in red, you will recharge it, right? Burnout is something similar to that. So when you notice that you are not able to do these things as easily anymore, you are experiencing burnout, and depression is a part of that process too.
What do you think? What role does childhood trauma play in depression?
Okay. If you feel that your childhood was very traumatic, then you are obviously thinking about it is not going to be a happy place for you. It is going to be something that brings up immense, sadness, disappointment, anger, resentment, and a lot of range of unpleasant emotions. And the funny thing is that nobody is free from childhood trauma,
Mm.
especially we live in India, where there are a lot of blurred lines between what is right and what is wrong for a child. So like how there's no exceptions, honestly.
Mm.
So if you do have the experiences that a typical Indian child has gone through, like माँ बाप की डांट सुन ली, उनका मार खा लिया, तो yeah, you are likely to have childhood trauma. It may or may not be interfering in your day-to-day life right now,
Mm.
but when you do explore further that, okay, recently realized that I'm depressed, or I'm having anxiety, or I'm having some major issue with a part of my life. And as you explore further into it, you may realize that, okay, the root of it is in my childhood. The root of it is my parents or my family experiences. And yeah, it's very easy to blame them. But at the end of the day, काम तो हमको ही करना पड़ेगा to resolve it and to move forward.
So, if I am a family member or a person in someone's life who's watching this podcast and I want to help, or I'm seeing when you're talking, I can notice the signs that you're talking about in someone I love, how can I help them?
Sponsor that therapy. That would be epic.
Hmm.
Um, Again, if that person is already going through therapy, then let them know that, oh, I finally understand what you've been going through, what you are experiencing, what you've been telling us all about so far. And I really want to support you. How can I be there for you? So that is one way to go about it. But if it's somebody who is completely maybe unaware of them going through such things and who hasn't started their healing journey yet, it's okay to just gently let them know that, oh, I read this book today, or I heard this podcast today, and I got to know about this, and it reminded me of you. I wanted to talk to you about these things. What do you think about it? How do you feel? Like, have you noticed such things in your life? Because you don't want to just go straight up and be like, oh, ye to tum hi ho, tumko ye sab hai.
Yeah. I think that would be very insensitive
Of
as
course.
well. And I think it won't come from a place of compassion, empathy for that person. But if I am somebody are there any signs as a loved one or even as an individual, I can notice that says, okay, I need help. I can't do it on my own. I need urgent help. What are those signs?
Okay, so it genuinely depends on the context, but there's no hard and fast rule when it comes to asking for help, whether it's something small, something big. It would be nicer if people were more open to reaching out and asking for help generally, because it's you making your life easier, right?
Yeah,
And
but in
everyone
India,
deserves that.
I think we do not reach out to help till it's really bad. So
Oh,
if I want to do that Reiki and have some early signs, what could be an early signs to go to therapy, or I can't help myself anymore?
Okay. Reiki ka to pata nahi, but when it comes to therapy, I would say that if you feel like you're still coming back to the same issue again and again, guma phira ke you're coming back to the same problem, then maybe that's a sign that, okay, you are feeling stuck, frustrated with something in your life, and it's time to reach out of the box and try something different like therapy, because you've tried yourself first, right? And we all like to be, feel like I can do it. I know what I'm doing. I'm, capable of this. But yeah, you've done your bit. Acknowledge your limitations too, because that is a part of us growing as people.
Yeah. Now, this brings up to me to this favorite topic that I have about couples and your expertise in that also. So, couples have this thing, they have this cycle of conflict, they have this cycle of repetition that they come back to the same problem again and again and again. What do you think are the problems that couples are facing in the moment in this era?
Okay. So I don't directly deal with couples or couples therapy, but I do get a lot of clients who experience relationship issues and हमेशा complain वही होता है कि मेरा boyfriend ऐसा कर रहा है, मेरे girlfriend बात नहीं सुनती वगैरह वगैरह. So I'm hearing only one side of the story. But of course, my loyalty is to my client, and I do have to help them see, beyond what they are experiencing, what the other person might be going through, like bring in that empathy factor. And yes, when they are arguing about the same thing again and again, they don't understand, they don't understand. The one root cause of that, what I see, is there are a lot of mismatching expectations, what I want from them versus what they want from me. And a lot of the times they wouldn't have had this conversation with each other at all. Like they might have been dating for the last 3 years, 5 years, whatever, but it's like hello, ye baat kaun karega? So having that really honest, open, transparent conversation about what are my expectations from you as a partner and vice versa can help build that middle ground or a bridge between what we should do as a couple, what we can work towards, because it's a collaborative relationship. It's a two-way street. It's not just, I do and you keep giving and I keep taking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But what could be the reasons of breakup nowadays?
Okay. Some very chiller reasons, I would say. But yeah, the reasons for breakup nowadays seems to be infidelity on the rise.
Yeah.
And if we talk about unmarried couples, infidelity, because people are quite confused about what they want and what they don't want in a partner. And they haven't given it a moment's thought about what is non negotiable for me in a relationship. What are my deal breakers?
Yeah.
What kind of, how would I like to be treated by my partner? And that is like such a huge question, huge topic to discuss, because it forms the core of your relationship. It's the foundation on which your relationship is built. So if your core value is like honesty and your partner is not honest with you, आप उनके साथ कर क्या रहे हो? So, and this is a very sad statistic to know, but the number one cause of divorce in America is infidelity. But the number one cause of divorce in India is in-laws. So I'm like, okay, let's not even get into married couples because that's a whole other ball game.
So you just talked about in-laws. So how does therapy help you handle that area of your relationship? Like even if you are working with an individual and not a couple and they are married, so how does this hand holding happens, how to deal with the family and the pressure of marriage in this country?
Oh wow, that's a very dangerous topic to get into, because as a girl, Indian girl of marriageable age, I know that getting into the arranged marriage process itself is such a like खतरों के खिलाड़ी चल रहा है. So getting through that, getting into a successful, happily married life requires a lot of work, a lot of immense reflection. What I want, what I don't want in my partner, in my in-laws, in my family. What are the kind of rituals or practices, not the religious kind, but just the day-to-day kind that I would like to be in part of our life. Because again, there's so many expectations placed on the girl compared to the guy, because the guy is not really leaving his house, right? So the expectation is that you adapt to our setting, you adapt to our rituals and practices, you adapt to our routine. So that does mean that, okay, they need to be a little patient with me, and I need to be a little more vocal about what is helping, not helping. And of course, in a polite, respectful way, because we're trying to make this work. ऐसा नहीं कि I'm going to Wonderla for one day, पसंद नहीं आया तो वापस आ गए. So it has to be something that, we're honest and transparent about. And I would really think it would make a huge difference if people in the process itself are very honest and transparent with themselves, their own parents, and the alliances that they see, because this is about finding what is compatible for you, not just now but in the future, like 50 years from now, 80 years from now, whatever. So where you can grow old together, where you can have children together, where you have the same values, ideologies. So take a moment to think before you get into this, because just like your parents are saying, or like friends are getting married, or society ka pressure hai, those are not really valid enough reasons to just marry somebody. So because there is such a huge rise in infidelity, it would make sense to do this more consciously and carefully, instead of looking at, oh, उसके पास इतना बड़ा घर है, ये गाड़ी है, और ये काम करती है, and ये position status है. Those are like, they're great, those are bonuses, those are amazing, but you have to come back at the end of the day and sleep next to this person. And if you cannot tolerate them, man, that's going to be difficult.
Yeah. What are the signs of emotional abuse in a relationship?
Okay, and the number one is gaslighting. And this is a very fancy word, but what it means is the person is just manipulating you into questioning your own thoughts and emotions and your own reality. Like, even if, for example, if I cheat on you and you confront me and I tell you that, ye tumhari wajah se hi hua, you're the one who made me cheat on you. So it's like, now, who's the victim? Who's the villain here?
Yeah. Can I give you an example? What if I confront my partner about something they are doing, and they are not being fair with me, and I'm telling them that, I don't like that you don't share the load with me, or you're not doing the household chores with me.
Yes.
I really don't appreciate that. I would like that help because I need that support, and I'm
Mhm.
very open about it. I'm telling why do I need that support, and they come back and they say that, oh, I did those two things last week. So
Mhm.
is that also gaslighting?
Well, it's a very broad spectrum, but here they're not gaslighting. Honestly, what I would say they're doing is not being accountable. They're not taking responsibility for their actions, for their share of the responsibility, and that means ki, hello, you need to step up. You can't just be on this back foot all the time, because it's like, आज lunch किया तो कल नहीं करेंगे.
Yeah.
It's a everyday thing.
Yeah. So maybe this can be that if they get angry and I say that you cannot be angry and you can't yell like that, they're like, you provoked me. So since you said what you said, I have every right to yell at you.
Okay, yeah, that is a tricky space to be in, and that does fall into that gaslighting area where you do need to take a time out, because once people start screaming, shouting, that conversation is not going anywhere. So just take a time out, let them know that, if there's going to be screaming, shouting, name calling, then I'm sorry, I cannot be part of this conversation. I will come back to this when I'm ready to, but I need to take a time out, and I would like to just calm down for a while and then come back and talk when we're both in a more neutral space.
Yeah. Yeah. So how much trauma, what is this trauma that people really talk about? So it has become a very flying, trendy, common word nowadays. What does trauma really looks like?
Okay. Trauma looks like different things in different people, across age groups, across populations, across gender. So, trauma is not sparing anyone. So, in simple words, traumas are emotional wounds that we carry. There might be something that, really hurt you in your childhood or in a past relationship. And something like, breakup happened because of infidelity, so that leaves a scar on you emotionally. It's not a physical thing that you can see and be like, oh, this is what it is. Like, I, broke my foot and this is the scar from that. But this is something like related to heartbreak, where it just kind of taints your heart, your soul. And it's something that is unresolved. That is why it comes up in your future relationships, your future job, your future, in-laws or family, whoever you're, married to. So it does show up in ways where you have maybe trust issues, where you have trouble believing other people that, oh, they really do mean good intentions for me.
Yeah.
It may show up in not committing to things, commitment issues.
Yeah. So nowadays people use it very loosely. But what really a person going through with trauma will be going through in daily life? Do you think that really uh, decreases their efficiency to live life normally or go through life easily in some way?
Yeah, definitely. Because trauma comes with the idea of you being stuck in that past moment where you're constantly just reliving that again and again and not able to get out of it, even if physically and with time you have grown older or you have moved on. But mentally and emotionally, you're still stuck in the past. So, of course, it's like I'm living a hollow life where physically I'm here, but mentally and emotionally I'm not. So, it does feel like, it's a क्या बोलते हैं, like this person is here but they're not here. So you aren't giving your 100% to your relationships, your work, or other parts of your life, to yourself also. And that can be very, very, hurtful.
So, how does someone build their trust after they're being cheated on by a partner? Can therapy help in that?
Yes, definitely. And I would say that that is a great space to explore what you really want in a relationship. What makes you feel like, okay, I can be 90% around, like, be myself around this person. And because 100% is not realistically possible for anyone at any time, but at least I can be 95% myself around this person. They make me feel safe, they make me feel heard, seen, valued. And that is what kind of partner you would want, right? Where you know that, okay, this is what I can do if I'm in a situation. This is the first person I would think of. This is the person I would rely on,
Yeah.
no matter what I'm going through, whether it's good, bad, ugly. And therapy is that space which helps you identify what you really want, what your core values, beliefs are, and how you can find that kind of a partner for yourself. Because otherwise, we'll just be selling ourselves short and, compromising for less, just in the name of ki koi to mil jaye, which is not a great option.
Everybody talks about therapy being the safe space. What does it change in us having that safe space, and how much important it is as a child, or how much important it is an adult to have that space?
I think it's extremely important because safe spaces are not limited to therapy, but therapy is one of those, like, undeniable safe spaces where you do have a lot of research, scientific data, a lot of history behind how this space is safe for you. The three main pillars of it is the privacy, confidentiality, and anonymity of things, where you don't know anything about your therapist. And of course, they have no reason to, share your details to anyone else, ethically and personally as well. So everything that you share happens there, stays there. So you know that this is that one person I can, like, share my heart and soul to, and it will always be respected. It will always be valued and acknowledged. There's no judgment. There's no bias. Apart from having that safe space in therapy, where you know you are going to feel this way, everybody deserves to have that safe space, whether it's in their house or in their workspace, because you don't want to go to work thinking aaj jang ladne ja rahe hain, something might happen to me on the way. You don't want to be in your house thinking ki something horrible is going to happen the next minute. You do want to be safe, and that's something we take for granted, honestly.
How would a trauma informed or a first session for a client who's gone through a lot of trauma will look like?
Okay, so my first sessions are generally very gentle, very compassionate, and I try to make them a little slow paced so that we are both on the same page. And it starts with introductions, getting to know each other, and talking about what is their idea of the therapy process, me introducing what therapy is not. So they are aware of what they are getting into consciously. And of course, discussing what their expectations, goals are, what they would like to address in this process, so that we can draft an effective treatment plan based on what their needs are. So, as an eclectic therapist, I do use a lot of different tools and techniques from different modalities like CBT, DBT, acceptance and commitment therapy. And I am extremely into the expressive arts lately. So, as an expressive arts facilitator, I do try to implement art modalities like drawing, speech, like narrative therapy, metaphors, and a lot of these are things that you can do anywhere at any time.
Yeah.
They're very low commitment, low effort, but what you get out of it is something so deep, meaningful, and beautiful. And there's no way to, like, put a price on that, honestly.
Yeah. Can you elaborate over the modalities that you use? What are these all? DBT, ACT, and like you explained a bit about expressive art therapy.
Yes. So to elaborate, I have always noticed that clients are having like different types of issues, right? But imagine that if I have anxiety, my anxiety is not going to be the same as your anxiety, even though we are both diagnosed with the same thing, or the doctor says कि आपको anxiety है, आपको भी anxiety है. Our depression is not the same, our anxiety is not the same, our heartbreak is not the same. Even though the label might be the same, I would like to let go of these labels and let go of these descriptions, because what I focus more on is what you are going through individually, right? It's so subjective in nature. So focusing on what is going on with them, what they need at that moment. Do they need comfort and support? Do they need a reflective space? Do they need action and solutions or strategies? What are what pace are they in? Matching that means that I need to adapt my strategy accordingly, adapt my pace accordingly, even the way I'm speaking, for example.
Yeah.
So if I notice, okay, the client is somebody who's feeling very restless right now and they may not be aware, वो बुलेट ट्रेन की तरह भागते हैं.
Mm,
So I have to slow myself down and say, okay, how do you feel about this?
yeah.
So that because I'm doing it, they are going to start mirroring that. And that is something that is a natural part of the process in helping them notice ki, okay, I need to slow down now. Because if I'm pointing it out again and again, that might be a little irritating.
Yeah.
But this is also helping them readjust or, recondition themselves from being in an anxious state to becoming calm, becoming a little bit more grounded. And they're doing that without even realizing. So when it comes to using expressive arts or different modalities, tools, and techniques, I do really want to be true to the eclectic school of thought,
Mhm.
so that I'm tailoring my needs, my tools and techniques to the client's needs. So it's a completely client centered, person centered, and it's like आपको जो चाहिए आपको वो हिसाब से ही मिलेगा. There's no copy paste happening.
Can trauma therapy be helpful in anger outburst and people who get really angry and have rage?
I think so. I definitely do feel that that is a great approach for people experiencing immense bursts of anger, aggression,
Yeah.
because anger, like what is anger at the root of it? It is a deep rooted sadness that they're experiencing, right? And many of us don't even know ki if I'm angry, what does it mean? Or if I'm sad, what does it mean? Like people don't operate on just happy and sad or angry. We're not like 5-year-old kids where we're just happy, sad, angry. We are much more mature, more layered, more complex than that. And like if you've seen the movie Inside Out 1, 2, and so on, so as the character grows up,
Yeah.
so do her emotions. They also start diversifying. They also start, becoming more layered and complex. So it's a necessity now that we build our emotional awareness and intelligence to understand what I'm going through, so I can give myself what I need. And any moment that people are feeling angry about something, there's a huge unmet need that you're experiencing. And this is a sign that, you need to look into what it is and how do I give myself that. So whether it's, through like if something you can do yourself, like for example, I'm hungry and I'm angry that I haven't eaten yet.
Yeah.
This is where you're hangry.
Yeah.
So go eat a sandwich, go order food,
Yeah.
do whatever you need to eat, right? That's a very basic situation
Yeah.
that we experience.
Yeah.
But if you're feeling angry that, oh, this person didn't tell me about their, they're going to come home late today,
Yeah.
or that they have this meeting today, why is this making me so angry? Like, kya ho gaya if they're late? What if they didn't tell me today? So what? So noticing what is it that you want in that moment and you're not getting will make such a huge, 180-degree flip happen.
Yeah. Because there's an unmet need. And that's
Absolutely.
where the childhood comes in. The unmet needs from the parents are the unmet needs we follow through in our relationships also.
Absolutely. Thank you for completing that circle.
Yeah. So, what do you think that people who are going through trauma, because I think I have heard it somewhere that 95% people know they have certain kind of childhood trauma or something they've been going through, and 5% don't know. So I don't know whether that makes it 100% in some way. But do you think, as a person, if I am in a certain kind of denial or I'm dismissive about what I'm going through, but I'm listening to this podcast, what could be few things that I can notice about myself and be like, okay, let me take the first step and have one session. I might be having trauma, which I'm completely dismissive about. Like you said, sadness, that people do not grieve. I think nowadays we don't grieve at all.
Yeah.
And grief is a very important process to get anywhere in any relationship.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think can be some other signs that somebody can catch on about themselves is like, I think I need help. I can't keep on avoiding it and ignoring these signs.
So I think the initial few signs would be when there are certain topics or situations that make you uncomfortable, and your immediate response is let's avoid this. Let's do it later. Procrastinating, delaying, avoiding, or escaping the situation in some way by giving yourself or giving other people excuses. So those are some like initial signs, and the more serious signs would come when you notice that I have to face this now, and it's like really scaring you like crazy. You are absolutely shivering, shaking, and you're just paralyzed. Maybe you're just stuck and frozen in fear because you have to go through it and there's no option, and you are not able to give yourself any other alternative because there's no escape now. So that's when it starts hitting you even more, because these may be some very day-to-day situations. But for like attending meetings, for example, so I do recall one of my clients having meeting anxiety. So every time they have to get into a meeting with their clients or their bosses, any kind of meeting, they would notice that I am just like, like nahi karna mujhe. And when we explore further, we understand that they have a lot of uh, concerns related to meetings because it's to do with perfectionism. It's to do with their own unrealistic high standards of what I should do, should not do in this meeting, how the meeting should go. So a lot of expectations which are creating so much pressure unnecessarily. So there are these situations where you will inevitably land up in, or you will place yourself in. And when you realize that I have to face this no matter what, but it's making me so restless, so uncomfortable, or distressing me so much,
Yeah.
those are very hard signs that you cannot be ignored anymore.
Yeah. When I commonly talk to clients, the one thing that they say is that this is a normal childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think somebody who had a normal childhood can have a bad relationship, or they can attract somebody who is uh, completely toxic or really toxic in some other ways?
Okay, I find the word normal very funny because the only normal people are the ones you don't know very well. This is a quote by Alfred Adler that I resonate with a lot. And I think it's a very, like, it's become like a pillar for me in our profession, especially because everyone thinks they're normal, but everyone has their own unique quirks and, weird habits that they do, including us, honestly. We're not like any exceptions as therapists. We also have our own share of issues and so on. So the thing is that even if you had a so-called normal childhood, it is still possible to have a bad relationship, to have a bad experience, because we are, how do I say it, like a potpourri of both the ups and downs. That is what life is made of.
Yeah.
So if everything was on a high, then something is majorly wrong.
So, yeah, so I will end this podcast on this whole quote that you said, which was beautiful, that normal are the only people that you don't know.
Yeah.
It was a lovely conversation with you, Afifa. If you want to book your session with Afifa, you can go to FYP Live, which is an online therapy platform for mental health and wellness. Link is there in the description. You can click on that link and book a session with Afifa according to your convenience and time. Thank you so much.